Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday morning, or whenever you get the opportunity to watch. And I have some important things to discuss today. It's not that we're going to be going into detail looking at an article or even watching videos. We just need to have this very important discussion about this conservative cold civil war that seems to be developing right now. I think some people are ignoring it. I think some people are maybe overblowing it a little bit, but it is a real thing, and I think we need to talk about it. We've got to figure out what is even going on. Why is there so much infighting? Is it necessary? And should we make every effort to put this to an end, right? To bring this to a stop. So we'll talk about that. I don't want to be completely doom and gloom. I don't think that it's the end of the world. But if the rapture happens during the course of the show, then I redact that. So let me first and foremost take a step back before we have this discussion and talk about a few things concerning the ministry. So let's see here. We did have, of course, our Sunday service in which we covered the book of Hosea. Give me just a moment here. I want to get this pulled up for you. So Hosea verse by verse is the current study that we are doing right now. And if you would like to have a dispensational, contextual, rightly divided study on the book of Hosea, then I certainly would encourage you to take a look at that. It's available on the website as well as our YouTube channel. And then, of course, we have our guide to the Greek scriptures that we are currently doing at this time as well. And that is our Sunday school series. We have started the book of Revelation. We'll probably do 3 sessions on the book of Revelation, and we'll be all done with our guide to the Greek scriptures. It's not the most organized study I've ever done. I'll just be completely honest on that. But it is a study that I think is of value. All right, so it may not be quite as highly ordered. We spent more time in certain books than we did others. But if you want an overall guide to the Greek scriptures, I hope that this provides a decent study for you, and it can be the basis for your own more in-depth study. So once again, that's the guide to the Greek scriptures. And then finally, our Wednesday night study is studying Abraham, finding the biblical truth. We are going to be back to that this Wednesday. We had a week off last week doing some special church events for the kiddos and everything. I am a pastor, and so we are going to be back to business, studying Abraham, finding the biblical truth in chapter 21, I believe, the command to offer Isaac as a sacrifice, a burnt offering. And so that is the studies, the series that we are doing right now. We are getting ready to start a new Sunday night series, and it will be live streamed. And so we'll have 3 different live streams on Sundays. I don't know what that study or what that series is going to be yet, so you'll have to stay tuned to find out. But I'm excited about that. We will now finally be offering 4 independent, unique Bible studies during the week, 3 on Sunday, 1 on Wednesday, in addition to the daily shows that we do. And then finally, the last announcement that I have for you is let me see here. I don't think I have it here on my main page, so let me get it pulled up for you really quickly over on my slide file here, and that is going to be I'm even going to include the dates here for you, because we do have those dates established now. It is officially on the schedule. And so here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the Spring Bible Conference at Blue Baptist Church, brought to you by Baze Ministries, addressing addressing doctrinal issues that churches avoid. So I think churches are a lot like this guy here. He doesn't want to hear it. He is not interested in listening to these very serious matters that are so often ignored. And you will notice the date here. That is going to be the 27th through the 29th. That is the weekend before Easter Sunday. All right? So the weekend before Easter Sunday, come on out and join us for the Spring Bible Conference. And I hope that you will enjoy that. And I think it's going to be a great time addressing very important things, kind of building off of addressing common Bible study mistakes. And so now we're going to go into more doctrinal issues this coming year in the Spring Bible Conference. For more information, contact me at markdbaze@gmail.com. That's the current email I'm using, markdbaze@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for enduring our announcements. Because we don't have so many episodes of Shields and Arrows like we have in the past, just due to a schedule change, I've been needing to do a whole bunch of announcements at one time, just to keep you all up to date with what we're doing, what's going on, so you're not getting lost and left behind. Okay, Tom, I see you have a question for me. I'm going to get that marked down here and put into my question bank. That way I can get to it on Theology Thursday. And if you have any questions, I try to answer all questions. I am getting ready to do a study, though, that is coming, in which I will be addressing some other questions I've gotten from someone, but they know who they are. And so let me get that question from Tom written down, and that way I can get to it on Thursday. Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. And so now, without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the topic of discussion for today's show. There is, I really do believe, a conservative cold civil war that is a brewing, and maybe some would say that it is just outright taking place. And once again, I know that you may tune in primarily for the theology, but we, on our show in particular, to offer a different variety, we do a lot of work with Dr. Randy White Ministries, and Worshipify, and Nathan. So he has his every day Ask the Theologian, answering theology questions. So we certainly offer our own variety of that. We do Theology Thursday, and we often do Follow-Up Friday, where we answer more questions if we don't have everything addressed on Thursday. But I do want to take this show, and I've explained it to you before, and most of you are familiar by now, but for those who may be tuning in, don't have the full picture, I'm wanting to offer you a perspective on political current issues from a rightly divided mid-Acts dispensational position. And I do think that we offer some important clarity, theological clarity on a lot of these things. And so therefore, we need to discuss this massive divide that is going on within the conservative movement, position, whatever term that you want to use. You have probably seen this, especially if you are somebody who pays very much attention to what is online. There was a time when folks like Tucker Carlson and others were big proponents of Trump, Make America Great Again, more so mainstream conservatism. And now you're starting to see people like Tucker Carlson, you're seeing, and others as well, start to separate or sour on President Trump, mainstream conservatives, like whether it is Ted Cruz, or even the Vice President, J.D. Vance. It goes on, all right? The point is, what I'm trying to say, is you have the Republican leadership, the conservative leadership on the federal level, and this can be true even on a state level, certainly. But there are a number of voices who are now very openly in opposition with the leaders of the Republican Party and then the conservative political view. And I think that this is something that is only going to continue to increase. I thought initially it was going to be just some brief grievances, but then a lot of these opposing voices would start to simmer down, and you would see kind of a reunification. That has not been what we have seen. And it seems to be growing louder and louder, especially when you do look online. And online is a terrible place to go to get information because it's hard to know, hey, what is actually factual, who is just trying to stir up controversy to get clicks, who is just trying to stir or get as much views as possible so they'll say whatever it takes. But the reality is, when you look at the comments, whether it's on posts from, I don't care if it's Fox News, the Daily Wire, Tucker Carlson, you name it, whoever these big media figures are, the momentum seems to be that the vocal people, the ones who are making the most noise, and some people who are pretty influential, have a lot of followers online, millions of subscribers on YouTube. Right, I wish. That'd be nice. I could quit my day job. But I digress. The point is, the major influential people really seem to be anti-Trump, anti-Republican. And what is strange about this, we're used to people in the media being anti-Trump. That's just been a reality for the past decade. People being anti-Republican, but it's always been somebody punching from the left. So the Republicans are racist. Trump's a racist. The accusations of Trump is sexist, right? So on it goes. Republicans are sexist. Republicans want segregation. Republicans are... I guess they used to try to argue Republicans were warmongers, which was always weird to me because it seemed like way more wars broke out, more fighting was done with Democrats in charge. But regardless, those were the arguments. But that's not what we're seeing now. And that's why I really am starting to call this a conservative cold civil war, because the punches and the blows are not coming from the left side of the aisle, they're coming from the right side of the aisle. Tucker Carlson and many others their grievances with mainstream Republicans, conservatives, Trump's administration is they're not truly America first. Their punches, their grievances, their complaints are Trump is not ending wars. Trump is making enemies with the wrong people. Trump should be, especially if you look at Tucker Carlson and his sympathies towards Russia, for example, that Trump is wrong in backing Ukraine. It's much more of a extreme, I guess I'll use those words, extreme right-wing mentality as opposed to an attack from the left or even an attack from maybe the more moderate positions. So what is going on? Because I will tell you right now, I know that my audience here is mostly consisting of an older generation, whether you're old enough to be my parents or my grandparents. The young people my age, I feel like I'm kind of left out here because the young people are infatuated with Tucker Carlson. The young people are infatuated with, I'll even throw out names, Candace Owens. They're infatuated with, there's another individual who I have not watched hardly any of at all, but Nick, well, I'll say I haven't watched him because I've only seen clips of him from others, so maybe I'm getting the short snippets of what they're wanting to show to paint him in a bad light, what have you. But Nick Fuentes. So there's all sorts of young people who are flocking to this very hard-lined right-wing position. And we have got to start figuring out why this is appealing. We've got to start figuring out why are there a lot of younger people, and I say younger, who are, and these people could even be a little bit older than me as well. Why do they see merit? Why are they nodding along with those who are very critical of the Trump administration, like Tucker Carlson and others? I think it's a grave mistake to just ignore them, because clearly there's something they're hearing that they're agreeing with. I'm not saying that they're right. I'm also not saying that the establishment conservatives are right either. You know me. I have a lot of grievances with conservatives. The Republicans have squandered many opportunities, I think. They're still spending way too much. They have not really done much for gun rights at all, which is one of the big things that we wanted to see them do. So what do we do? Because I'm worried that there is this massive divide that is occurring, and it is going to rip the conservative party in half, the conservative movement in half, the Republican Party in half, what have you. Independents who are conservative in their principles, conservative libertarians. I have no problem with conservative libertarians. I do have a problem with libertarians, because if you are just purely a libertarian without any conservative principles, then you really are not going to lead to a society that has any guiding principles, and it will just evolve into godless liberalism, which is what we've gotten, I think. But my point is, we've got to figure this out. Whether you like it or not, unless the online voices are just really loud. But I'm telling you this, even in conversations I've had with people, these are real people. This is not people I'm talking to online in a comment section on X or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. These are real people. I know real people who are voicing their grievances with mainstream conservatives, and they see a reason to be in support. I apologize. I was getting notifications there from Nathan, who is our tech guy. It's not regarding the show, but I'll get to that in just a minute. As a matter of fact, let me pause because he is doing a lot of work for me right now. Let me quickly do this, and we will return back to our regular scheduled programming. I do apologize, folks. Stick around for just a second. Nathan, as you remember, this is a great opportunity while you are watching the screen. Nathan, you should watch the you should watch the interview I did with him. That is on the YouTube channel. And now that I've gotten Nathan all squared away, I should be ready to go. Here we go, back to the normal scheduled programming. Sorry for the interruption. Moving on. Whether you like it or not, there is a lot of people that are sympathizing with the discontent, conservative, I don't want to say extreme right, because that's used by the left in media for all sorts of propaganda and whatnot. But it's a hard right position, I guess. Further right than mainstream conservatism. A lot of young people, and just people in general, are getting behind these kind of folks. Okay? And I am hoping that we can come to a reconciliation here. Normally we talk about reconciliation, we're talking about the ministry of reconciliation given to us by the Apostle Paul, by the revelation of Jesus Christ, the mystery. But the reconciliation I'm talking about here is trying to reconcile the Republican Party, the conservatives, because today is election day in a lot of states. Well, every state to a degree. Oklahoma's election day is a little bit different. The city of New York's about to elect, and unless there's some massive upset that takes place, somehow Andrew Cuomo, he's pretty radical too, but anyways, if Andrew Cuomo can somehow upset Zoran Mondani, there's about to be an openly professing socialist Muslim who will be the mayor of New York. That should terrify us, especially because a lot of mainstream Democrats have spoken out in support of Zoran Mondani. The Democrat Party is trending more and more towards the hard left and radicalism. And what I'm greatly worried about, and everybody here needs to really think hard about this, if the Republican Party conservatism is fractured, you very well could be looking at an AOC presidency in 2028. I've already talked about it before, and I know these things are hard to predict, but there's oftentimes you can find front runners this early on. Gavin Newsom, I don't know. I don't think he has enough points with the Democratic Party. He's a white man. That's a problem. And as far as we know, he's straight, right? So he's out. Even Gavin Newsom, though, is still quite radical, very far left. But AOC would be definitely the most radical candidate yet. Far more radical than even Kamala Harris. Thomas, see your comment there, say or do. I'm not sure. Did I misspeak there? You'll have to let me know there and clarify what you mean by that. So I'm hoping that we can get our act together. We need to get our act together before the midterms. And for all the young people who may be watching this, who are saying, no, we are taking issue with Trump's administration, we do see some major issues, you've got to start communicating and letting us know what you're seeing. Now, I will say, I see some of it, okay? I get it. Trump is not being near as hard on the immigration front as we would like. And for some people that sounds surprising, because you think, oh, but there's illegal crossings are down, and Tom Homan, the borders are, right? He's doing a great job, and I think he is to a degree, but we still want to see the wall built. It's not happening yet. Trump has said some things like, well, we won't deport certain people, those who work on farms and what have you. Like, no. We want to see all illegals deported. That's really what we want. We're not just talking about the violent people. We're talking about the people who are here because they shouldn't be here. So I get those grievances. I see that. And then you have the matter of whether it's Ukraine and Russia or Israel and Hamas. Why are we sending money to other countries, right? I mean, that's just a question to ask. Now, this is where you do have some cultural divide, generational divide, I should say, because the younger people do not see Israel in the same way that the older generations do. The older generations see what they would say is a longtime ally. The younger people see Israel as a country that only seems to benefit that only seems to benefit themselves. It's a parasitic relationship, is what the younger people would say. Israel only benefits from the United States. The United States doesn't benefit from Israel. As if anything, Israel is going to get the United States involved in a war. And Tucker Carlson would say, look how, because of Israel, we bombed Iran. Okay, yeah, we did bomb Iran, even though Trump has been very consistent for a long time that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. Whether you agree with him or not on how you feel about Iran, Iran. I've been listening to too many politicians. Iran. I'm going to say it right. Iran. The American way to say it. So, regardless about how you feel about Iran, you cannot say that Trump pulled the rug out from underneath you. All the people like, whether it's Tucker Carlson or what is that comedian who has kind of been doing a lot of public speaking as well? Dave Murray. I can't remember his name. But acting like Trump betrayed them by coming out really hard against Iran and then bombing their nuclear sites. You don't get to play a victim here because Trump has been consistent. I think that there are some granules of truth in the grievances of Tucker Carlson and others, okay? There are granules. Now, some things Tucker Carlson has done I think is just absurd. His defense of Maduro, of Venezuela, I think is ridiculous. But there are some granules. Like I said, I'm having to nitpick Trump on his border policy, okay? Because I think it's been great. I really do. What we had under Biden was a disgrace. It was, I think, like Trump said, an attack, an invasion. And Trump has really done a 180. So I am much more lenient with Trump than others. What I'm trying to do, I really am. The goal of today's episode, I am trying to get us to where we can have a meeting with each other. We can get the mainstream conservatives, the Trump administration, your grandparents' conservative position, and the young, hot-headed, hard-right people who are not happy with everything Trump has done, to be able to have a meeting with each other instead of having this mudslinging, ugly fighting that's going on, all right? I guess I feel like I am, because I am young, I'm standing over here with some of the young discontent folks, but because I've been raised in the culture of traditional conservatives, so many of my mentors that I value, obviously whether it's my dad or others, Dr. White would be somebody that, has shared a lot of wisdom with me. Others, many of you who watch this show, you've talked and spoken with me as well. I'm just trying to stand here, and I feel like I'm about to get ripped in half because I'm trying to be this middle ground here, and maybe I'm going to get run over because I'm standing in the middle of the tracks, the middle of the road. I don't know. But we have this. We have this ripping apart of conservatives. We need the young and the old alike. We need the older generation and the younger generation to come together here, or we will be looking down the barrel of an AOC presidency. We'll be looking down the barrel of a Democrat-run Senate and House of Representatives. And they have already been threatening. Remember in the first Trump administration, and they were threatening to pack the courts. Biden was threatening to pack the courts. Things could escalate quickly. These things happen really slow and then very fast. If the Democrats come in power and they're able to do it, Washington, D.C. becomes a state. There's 2 senators added. Washington, and then I don't know who else. Maybe Puerto Rico. What would the politics of Puerto Rico look like? So I think that we are going to rip apart the conservative momentum, the conservative party, and then it's just paving the way for a radical Democrat party to run the country. We've got to get this ugly infighting over and done. And for those of you who say, this is all news to me, I haven't seen it, maybe it's because I'm in a bubble that is just full of infighting. Maybe I hope it's the case. I hope that the cold Civil War isn't as big of a deal as what it seems to me, but I think that it's being ignored by some. That's my suspicion. I think that some people don't realize what's brewing. And a lot of people are turning on mainstream conservatism. Now, once again, here's where I'm trying to be an ambassador for both, I guess, because before you completely run the young folks out and tell them that they're just wrong because they're young and ignorant or what have you, listen to their grievances, okay? Now, some of it, I think they're probably just being toyed with. I think that they're grabbing onto headlines. I think that Candace Owens says a whole lot of crazy stuff, all right? I think all those things can be true. But I think some of it, you need to hear where they're coming from. And they may have some points. Israel has been a huge dividing factor. Partly because the young people who are in the conservative movement, Calvinism has won the day. Reformed theology has won the day. We are the underground rebellion. If you are a dispensationalist, even if you're just not a Calvinist and you don't hold to the Reformed view, you are the underground freedom fighters. Okay, it's just kind of what you are, because the institutions are owned by that Reformed doctrine. The young people are Christian. A lot of them are. There's been a huge upsurge in Christianity amongst young people. But it is a Calvinist, Reformed Christianity. We are the true Israel. That's what they all think. And it does breed a disdain for the nation state of Israel, because there are the remnants of a dispensational doctrine who holds to a future for Israel. Now, some of them have gotten it really messed up. Case in point, Ted Cruz, right? His argument that from Genesis we need to support Israel, which means we need to support the nation state of Israel. It creates a mess. All right, it creates a mess. And I know that there are some right dividers here. This is where I'm going to rub the older generation the wrong way a little bit, maybe, because I don't think that the nation state of Israel today is the fulfillment of prophecy. Now, I could be wrong, sure. And I know that there are some in the older generation who have their reasons for it. I'm not there. I don't think that we're seeing prophecy fulfilled today. I think we're still in the mystery age, and we just don't have an overlap of mystery and prophecy at this point. Israel has just been a huge hot topic. The young people, as well as some of the older generation as well, what have you, they are very much into the, if I say conspiracy, it'll maybe make them mad, I don't know, conspiracy theory. The online speculation that Israel is kind of behind everything, whether it is JFK, 9/11, Charlie Kirk's massacre, like the young people are all into that Israel is kind of the man behind the curtain. I'm not there. I'm listening to them, willing to hear their case, because I think if you don't listen to them, then it's going to alienate them, all right? And I don't want that. I don't want them to think that I don't care. So I'm listening to where you're coming from, all right? Does Israel have the United States' best interest at heart, or is Israel using us? These are all fine questions to be asked. I think any country that we are involved with, that we're giving money to or military support to, you name it, we need to be asking, do they have any of our interest at the forefront, or is this entirely a one-sided agreement here? Are we getting anything out of it? That's fine. And I think we'd be silly to think that there aren't countries that want to try to influence us. I'm hearing you, all right? So be cautious, investigate, ask questions. That's okay. You need to come up with some real receipts. And there's some people who think they have real receipts that show all that, and that we need to pull all support from Israel. Now, I'm willing to hear that conversation because Israel is a sovereign nation. Can they not take care of themselves? And maybe they can't. Maybe Israel has to have the United States sending them weapons in order for them to continue to exist. Maybe that's a problem. And if Israel is that dependent on the United States, then they need to stop being a sovereign nation, maybe. Those are real interesting discussions to have, right? Maybe they need to become more like a Guam or something like that. I don't know, if they can't stand on their own 2 feet. I'm of the opinion, though, let's let them stand on their own 2 feet and stop telling them what they can and cannot do. How about that? So how about, like the Biden administration, we stop telling them that they can't go in and take out Hamas. If you're a sovereign nation, do what you want to do, I guess, right? If you can get away with it. I mean, I know that's just kind of been the rule of the world, right? If you want that land, you can go and take it, but you better be willing to defend that land and then accept any of the consequences and ramifications that may come of it. That's just kind of been the rule of it, right? The land is yours if you can keep it, or the land can be yours if you can take it. We've talked about that before. All of the Native American tribes that have grievances about, well, we were here first. Well, okay, maybe you were, but you weren't able to keep it. That's just how land has always been. Land has been taken through conquest or defense. And now we're kind of going off on a tangent. But we got to start having these conversations between the two major divisions here. We've got to come to reconciliation, because I don't like, and I am going to put a lot of this on the Tucker Carlson group, okay? I'm going to put a lot of this on the, maybe the Candace Owens group, those who watch all of her stuff and just think that everything she says she's right on about. Their grievances, Tucker Carlson has only been attacking the right. I mean, have you noticed that? If you're watching Tucker Carlson, all of his guests, all of his videos, what have you, it's just, he hasn't thrown any punches at the left. I mean, really at all. It's always ultimately an attack on conservatives, Republicans. Why is that? Because I thought we had more in common with each other on the conservative side of the aisle than we did with the liberals, with the left wing. Because at least we agree that the biblical values are true, that it is wrong to murder, which includes a child in the womb. We agree that, and I think conservatives are coming around to this, and I will commend the young people, okay? So where the older generation maybe didn't bow up and defend biblical marriage like they needed to. I'm not speaking of everyone of the older generations. You can't generalize entirely, but the point is, the young people, they're not only anti the transgender movement, they're anti gay marriage, right? That doesn't even exist. And I'm of that vein as well. When it comes to that debate, like, I'm right there with them, okay? Like, you cannot, like, it was a horrible decision by the Supreme Court to rule that there's somehow this constitutional right to gay marriage and then impose that upon the states. Completely wrong. It's absolutely bogus, all right? It's ridiculous. Gay marriage does not exist, and we need to start being more vocal about it. It's not a real thing, okay? It's a farce. It's a sham. It's a lie. Marriage is between a man and a woman. It doesn't matter what you call it. Two men cannot be married. Two women cannot be married. It's impossible. So I will commend the young people on being very outspoken about that. But we have more in common with our fellow conservatives. I have more in common with a more moderate conservative than I do a liberal, a moderate liberal. We agree on, generally, that socialism is a very bad idea, that it encourages a bigger government. Now, one of the grievances that younger people have is that the Conservative Party or the Republicans are not really for small government. And that is kind of a true thing. That is kind of a true thing, because the Republicans haven't really cut spending in a major way. That's, if you want to talk about Thomas Massey's, one of his big grievances about the big, beautiful bill is it was still too much spending. That's a real thing. Now, let me try to use an example here to make a point. My church is now a right dividing church. The vast majority of the people there understand the mystery. They understand the age of grace. They understand that Christ's ministry on the earth was to Israel concerning the matters of the kingdom, which is a future literal thing. Like, they are on board with that. I did not go into that church and just right off the bat start teaching right division, because they weren't ready yet. They needed to They needed to hear me give the case for why, first and foremost, we've got to take the Bible literally. That's why one of my early sermons at the church was Genesis chapter 1, and teaching it for what it says. Just teaching it literally for what it says. That set the precedent that we were going to be biblical literalists. Now, when you're a biblical literalist and you read in Ephesians 3, or you read in Acts chapter 2, and you see the clear distinctions between what God was doing with Israel versus what God is doing with us today, and how our gospel was a mystery that was not previously known until it was revealed to Paul, and then you go back and you look in the Old Testament, you see where Israel had to obey the law. They had to offer the sacrifices, they had to keep the commandments, otherwise they were not in right standing with God. You're being a biblical literalist. And then that allows you to quickly grasp and understand the Pauline mystery, the dispensation of grace that we're in today. But you've got to establish the principles of studying the Bible before you dive into Ephesians 3, Colossians 1, Romans 16, Galatians 1 and 2, on and on, right? My recommendation to some of the people who want to see major change in the conservative movement, you want them to be even more conservative, more state sovereignty. You want to see them be less government spending. You want to see a decrease of the federal government. And you're a constitutionalist, and so when you see Trump marching the National Guard into Chicago, that does bother you. Because originally, the picture of the president, he wouldn't have had that executive power. Now, sorry, post-14th Amendment, the executive and the federal government has so much more power than what the Constitution ever originally intended. I mean, that's just the reality. After the Civil War, the idea of a sovereign state is just really it's been so undermined by the precedent that came after the end of the Civil War. And that's a real historical fact that people just don't want to talk about. And even Republicans fail to talk about. Like, we got to talk about the fact that Abraham Lincoln kept the country together, but at what cost? That's a real thing. And the young people are actually talking about it, and good on them. I think some of the older generations that venerate Abraham as the greatest president of all time, I mean, great by what metric? He kept the country together, okay. Yeah, he oversaw the hiring of the generals that led to the defeat of the Southern Confederate States. Yes, you're right. Also, he massively expanded the power of the federal government. And that's a reason, Abraham Lincoln is one of the reasons why we are so concerned about who's in Washington, because the federal government does control so much of our lives. So I commend the young people on having those real conversations. Here's my message to them, though. First of all, don't let somebody just use you as a pawn. Okay, I think Tucker Carlson, Rick, in his comment here, he says Tucker giving an uncontested platform to Hitler, Stalin, loving and Jew-hating Nick Fuentes was beyond disgusting. The reality is, some people are just grifters. Some people are just trying to get clicks. All right? Tucker Carlson knows what headlines are going to get attention. Okay? He knows he's a smart guy. Okay? He is. And I think he's in part an actor. Okay? I think he puts on a persona. And there's others like him, and there's others that are on more of the mainstream conservative side who just put on a persona as well. That's fine, okay? There are false, disingenuous people all over the place. You got to look out for them, okay? Young people, you got to make sure you're not being played. Young people have been used for the basis of movements for a long time because you are young, you are passionate, you're fired up, you have energy. just don't let them use you. Use your brains. The great thing about being young is you get to look at the previous generation and you can learn from them, learn from things they did right. You can learn from things they did wrong. Those are all true things. But do not become arrogant and think that you are right about everything and that you can't be manipulated and used as a pawn by somebody else. And I think that's what's happening to some of the young people. The older generation, I think you do need to listen to what some of their grievances are. The young people are frustrated that it is so difficult, not impossible, because it can be done, but difficult for mothers to be in the home. That's one of my grievances. It was just expected that, our women were just supposed to go out and get a job and then take on mountains of debt to where they had to work and they couldn't be at home with their children. Like, that's a real grievance I have. And I know it goes a long ways back when all that movement started. So previous generations did not maybe recognize the big error, or maybe some recognized it, but they couldn't stop it. I guess just what I'm trying to get at is there's a generational divide here. And if you want to make gains, if you want to make progress in reconciling both sides, whether you're the older generation or you're the more mainstream conservative position, and you're trying to reach these discontented people, whether they're young or they're just people who are following after Tucker Carlson, what have you, you can't just write them off because there's too many over here. There are a lot. I do think there's a lot of young people who are in that camp. At the same time, young people, I think you need the more mainstream as well. You need each other. So what you've got to do is you've got to stop letting yourselves be divided over some things that just cannot be established as true. You've got to focus on the major things. And maybe some things that are true but are just so fringe that you've got to ignore that as well. Once again, I would never have gotten my church to the point of rightly dividing if I just dove off into the deep end right off the bat and just started running roughshod, okay? I took 2 years to do a lot of my doctrinal grounding in the church, and even then maybe it felt rushed to some people, I don't know. You got to start slow. You've got to be gracious. We've got to stop the fighting, because you may not like you may have some complaints about Trump's presidency if you're of this discontent vein. But I'm just telling you, you will cut off your nose to spite your face. And where we could be trending more conservative, and maybe we have a Vance in 2028, and then at some point we could get a DeSantis or some other really Vivek Ramaswamy, whatever, okay, let's fill in the blank. Thomas Massey, I don't know. You can make the progression in a more methodical, more gradual, more patient manner, or you can throw the baby out with the bathwater, throw Trump under the bus because he's not perfect. Newsflash, no politician is going to be perfect. You're going to have a complaint with everybody. You'll never, politics is the art of the possible. We've talked about this before. You've got to start having more realistic expectations. So you've got to have a much more realistic, gracious approach. And these two sides that are having a cold civil war with each other within conservatism, they've got to get it figured out. They've got to get it figured out. Listen to each other. Realize that there's some things right now that are just more important. We're spending a bunch of money anyways, which is a problem. Maybe we need to worry about more what's going on at the home front, and making sure that we're making progress there, than calling presidents traitors and warmongers and criminals or what have you because they're engaging in foreign policy. Whether you like it or not, the United States has been the world's police for a good while now. I'm not saying that's the way it should be, but that's kind of the status quo. Can we fix our house before we try to fix everything else, okay? Does the bank, let's put this in an analogy of the home, right? Is the bank account really where it needs to be? No, we need to get some more in savings. That's true, okay? Do we need to see to the I don't know, driveway? Yeah, the driveway needs work. What have you? Do you have a leaky faucet? Yeah, you have a leaky faucet. You know what else you have? Your kid is going out and doing drugs every night. All right, there's bigger problems. Okay, and I think that we can all agree that we've got to fix the kid problem, the family problem. Then we can worry about fixing the leaky faucet and everything else. All right, so conservatives, can you please come together and stop fighting? Because this is going to, I'm telling you, the Democrats are loving the infighting. And this mentality, the young people have the mentality of, oh, we're just being played, man. They're just trying to pit us against the Democrats, when in reality it's other people who are behind the scenes. Maybe the Democrats are trying to pit us against each other. And maybe you're playing into their hands. I'm just saying, let's focus on the big issues and be willing to settle for some slow progress. I don't know that I'll live to see the day where America is as conservative as I want it to be. I don't know that I'll live to see Obergefell struck down the courts. I don't know that I'll live to see the day the federal government gives up some powers and gives it back to the states. Maybe my kids will, but you know what? Maybe my grandsons. Maybe my grandsons will live to see that day. Or even my great-grandsons. We got to settle for something. Those are my thoughts. We've got to put a stop to the cold civil war that's just tearing conservatism apart. So those are my thoughts today on a Tuesday. Let me read a couple of your comments here before I let you go. Robert says that he actually has a grandson older than me. And Chuck says that must make him an old man too. I'm not saying anything. So Tom, was in regard to your question, does God chastise during the age of grace? Say or do? Okay, I guess I understand. Rick says, taking a break from alligator wrestling to catch shields and arrows. Very nice, very nice. Rick, a real Florida man. Got David on with us. Got a question for me. I'll put that in the docket for Theology Thursday as well. I know, David, you're still working through these things, wrestling with these things. I'm encouraged by it. Grateful that you're studying anyways. Even if you're not coming to a right division view, you're still testing these things out and trying to understand. David says, Galatians 2:16, by works of the law shall no flesh be justified, and yet right division seems to combine faith and works of the law to be justification for the Old Testament saint. Romans 11:6, grace and works incompatible in any age. So, yeah, I'm already at an hour. I may talk about that tomorrow. I may make that a special episode. I think you're proof texting with Galatians 2:16. I don't know about a Romans 11:6. You got to be careful about a single verse, because I can also show you some other passages as well, like James, where I could make that case that, yeah, the Jews need to have faith plus works, but does that mean we have to have faith plus works? You got to rightly divide. We'll talk more about that, David. I know it's a lot to cover here. Tom says the dispensation of grace is probably going to end shortly. Calvinism, like you said, is winning the day. The ecumenical group is winning the day. Yeah, I kind of like having my back against a wall, though, right? Being the kind of fun being the underdog. Rick says, due to moderate Democrats being too cowardly to speak up, probably about Zoran Mondani and AOC and others. Yeah, the Democrat Party is one of cowards because they built their coalition off of appealing to everyone, and they even nodded at the radicals in order to get them on board. And now the radicals are starting to run the show. And I will say this: there is a real thing. If the Republicans do the same thing, it is possible that you could start having people who don't really represent conservative values, but represent something else, take over. It's a thing. I don't think it's here, but it's possible. And David finishes with, my struggle continues. Hey, if you're wrestling with the scriptures, that means that you're really studying, because if you're struggling, at least to understand anything, it means that you really are putting effort into it. And you don't have to apologize for being off subject. I'm happy to discuss it. And thanks for liking the jacket. Yeah, this is my blue one. I break it out sometimes. I like to break out the blue coat. And thank you, David. Great to have all of you with us today. I don't have anything else for you. I don't see any of your comments coming in, but I hope that you really do spend some time thinking about this. If you know someone, maybe you've got a younger, if you have a son, if you have a grandson, a coworker, what have you, and you know that there is this rift, this divide in between conservatism, we've got to start trying to figure out how we're going to bring this thing back together, all right? Because we are headed towards a lot of fracturing, and maybe I'm overblowing it. Maybe it's not as severe as what I think. I hope that's the case. But you know what I would love to do? Let's nip it in the bud, right? Good old Barney Fife. Nip it in the bud. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been Shills and Arrows. I'll remind you once again, start getting it on your mind. March 27th through the 29th, the 2026 Spring Bible Conference addressing doctrinal issues that churches avoid. If you want to contact me, markdbaze@gmail.com. That's how you get a hold of me. I really appreciate all of you. You're encouraging to me. I hope that you enjoyed your time with us today. And until tomorrow, I think we'll be going live tomorrow. This has been Shields and Arrows, where we defend the faith, the family, and the fellowship. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for supporting our ministry. You can do so at markbazeministries.org. I mean, this is what I do. This is my job. So thank you all so much. It's great to have you. We'll see all of you later.